Could mankind receive ethics maybe from just from the natural world? What, like for example, killing is something that is just axiomatic. It's self-evident that it's just wrong. What makes, like, say for example, the Torah stand out among natural law, so to speak?
Right. No, that's a good question. And the answer is maybe. Rambam quoting Chazal, and Rashi also brings it down. He quotes Rabbi Yochanan in the Talmud that one can learn modesty from a cat or learn how to work hard from watching an ant. Now, yes, the Rambam was also a student of Aristotle, but it shows that even Chazal, our sages from the Talmud, had a similar sentiment. It's possible, however, we don't see another philosophy out there duplicating the successes that Torah has brought to civilization. But I'm not saying it can't. Now, if I say it can't, it would be strictly out of faith. I'm just saying that it hasn't. So being that life is too short, if we're lucky, we'll live to 120. I mean, it's really taken from an idea in the Torah and in Psalms. But life's too short to go looking for a new ethical outlet that hasn't been tried and tested. In other words, to throw away the baby with the bathwater, to try to reinvent the wheel ethically when we have a system that works. In other words, we know what happens to societies when they throw away biblical standards. We've seen the former Soviet Union, North Korea, they leave a trail of carnage, of death and carnage. Now, of course, that doesn't happen immediately because it takes a few generations. Even atheists nowadays, their great-grandparents were religious. Even Karl Marx, his grandfather was a rabbi. But you suddenly get confronted with what's called cut flower ethics. And that, yes, I mean, you could claim to be ethical and atheist because you're standing on the shoulders of giants and you're walking down the path laid down by your ancestors, your religious ancestors. But eventually, your philosophy will end up catching up with you. And we slowly see this happening to Europe. This is why, I mean, Europe still stands, because 100 years ago, Holland, Sweden, these places were religious. So they're in some way riding that ethical wave, but I think it's ultimately going to catch up with them. Now, what did away with the Soviet Union so fast is that they basically attacked religion and made it illegal to a certain extent. I mean, there's a misconception here. People think that Jews had it so bad in the Soviet Union. Christians had it a lot worse than Jews had it in the Soviet Union. As a matter of fact, many Jews were allowed to leave while Christians weren't allowed to leave.
It's kind of like the...
So I'm sorry, Courtney, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to kind of add on to that. A lot of atheists say that the Bible hasn't really given us a moral compass because some cultures promote rape, like it's normal in their culture for a man to just grab a woman and rape her and just continue on about his business. But I would submit and say that rape is always wrong to the victim, right? Because if it turns from, I'm going to try and be, G here.
Clean.
Yeah. If it goes from where she's consenting, well, that's not rape anymore. That's mutual. So if it's a person that doesn't want it, then it's always rape. And that person is always a victim. That person always feels like a victim. So rape is always wrong. No matter if the male-dominated culture or, whatever culture it may be accepts it, it doesn't matter. The victim always feels like a victim. So it's always wrong.
So, I mean, going with your logic, couldn't we just apply that to, say, murder or killing, even if it's justified in the Torah or in the Bible? From looking at it from the other
create
part
as many laws as you want. The problem is most people are not going to want to keep a law in an absolute form unless they feel it's coming from God. In other words, you can say that murdering is wrong for you, but who are you to say that it's wrong for me? I mean, I could rationalize it another way. My philosophical hero could be Genghis Khan and not Aristotle or Plato. So I think someone who adheres to the biblical standards could know in some religious way that murdering is wrong because God says it's wrong. And now that's clearly faith, or that's knowledge enveloped in faith, but it does work to help us police society. I said earlier that Voltaire makes a statement that he would prefer for his lover and his doctor to be Christian because that would in some way ensure that he wouldn't be poisoned or cheated on. So there is a practical net gain in having people fear a good God, even though the atheist may debate if it's provable.
Right.
But what religion do you belong to, Mr. JB?
Me or?
Yeah.
Are you
So
talking
we
to
don't
me,
attack
Rabbi?
any religions here. Unless you're
No, no, no. I'm a Reformed Jew.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm a
Where do you
Reformed
live?
Jew. I live in California, Antelope Valley,